Hoi almal, dis Juffrou Nagel en ons gaan kyk na 'n paar klein goedjies van FIELA se kind. So this is just like a small little things to look at, like the theme, the structure of a drama, and how we see the structure of the drama in FIELA se kind, the spaces, and what a drama is, and what we need to look for like in certain things. Okay, so drama is 'n handeling. Ons kan sien en hoor wat gebeur, handeling en dialoog. So basically drama is like it's sort of like a movement. You can see it on stage, and it consists of like we can see as the audience, we can see things that are happening and we can hear things. And this refers to like the handeling, the movement, and the dialoog, the dialogue. Voordeel, gehoor kan sien wat gebeur en kan karakters emosies ervaar. So the advantage of watching a drama. And remember, this is the whole, like, although we read this as like a prescribed book, a drama is supposed to be performed. And you have to keep this in mind, like when you're reading it as well. It is a performance essentially. So the advantage of this is that the audience can see what happens and we can see how the character experiences their emotions. So obviously on stage, you won't read the things that are in brackets. Like if it says like Susan is quad, you're not gonna read, like if you're on stage, you're not gonna say quad and then like you just say a sentence. We will be able to see it in your facial expressions, in your body language, and your other movements. Nadeel, beperkte tyd en beperkte ruimte. So obviously the disadvantage of a drama is that you have limited time and you have limited space. And that is why in FIELA se kind drama, we essentially only have 3 main spaces that we actually sort of like jump in between. And I think it's important not to have too many spaces in a drama because you are limited for time and having like all these changes. So if you read this, you obviously would have seen that sometimes it says dim the lights, and then after we've dimmed the lights, we're back somewhere else. And obviously on stage, in the time that the lights are dimmed and the music is playing, it is the time when like something else happens. There's also like a few scenes where things happen off the stage. So when they're looking for Lucas in the beginning, people are shouting from off the stage to sort of give us this idea that it's a lot bigger than it actually is. Die skynsgedrukte woorde tussen hakies is die toneelaanwysing, subtext of nevertext. So the like words in italic in brackets is the scene directions, which is toneelaanwysings, or the subtext. And essentially what this a lot of times does is it tells us when we're just reading this drama, it tells us more about like the emotion that the person, the character might be experiencing. It tells us what should happen on the stage. It tells us how we transition from one scene to another scene. Dit dui die handeling aan. So kry die leser inligting oor die karakters, so karakters, kleredrag, beligting, dekor, klankeffek en agtergrond. So that's just what I said, like it indicates the movement, and what it does is like we as the reader, when we're just reading the drama, we get the information on the characters, what they have to wear, the lighting, the decor, the sound effects, and like the scenery, the background of the stage. So then we have the different types of like talking or speaking in a drama. So a monologue is alleenspraak. A monologue is when the person or the character is speaking alone. And a lot of the times, like a monologue is the way you sort of get the thoughts of the character. So gedagtes van die karakter. So if you think about when we start FIELA se kind, we have quite a few monologues from like Elias, and immediately we can see that this person is not a good person because of the way they are talking or what they are saying. And the other type of monologue that we get in FIELA se kind is that recorded voice. And the recorded voice appears for FIELA and for Benjamin / Lucas. And this is important because this gives us like more details on what is going on in their heads. So while they're standing on stage, you know, they might be doing a movement or the lights might be dimming out, but we can hear their innermost thoughts. And then dialoog, wanneer karakters elkeen 'n spreekwoord kry, hooftext, and then there's obviously dialogue, it's the main text, and this is where you like, you know, characters are like interacting with each other and they're talking to each other back and forth, stuff like that. So then the ruimte, so essentially in FIELA se kind, we have 3 main spaces, okay? The first one is die Lange Kloof. So this is where the Kamuti family lives. You know, they live like in the Lange Kloof is the area on the farm or the plot, die Wolwekraal. So it's important to realize that this space is oop en lig, which indicates that it's good. It's open and light, which indicates that it's goed. So yeah, the reason it is good is because we have the liefdevolle familie, we have the loving family. They are godsdienstig, so they're religious. Benjamin het 'n goeie vrolike lewe. When Benjamin is with the Kamuti family, he has a good life that he enjoys. When he was with them as a young child, he just enjoyed his life as a child. And now if we just maybe have to think, I know we didn't actually get like the details about that, But if you had to contrast that to maybe the life that Christoffel or Willem experienced as children in divorce, I don't think they really had an opportunity to actually be kids because all their dad thinks of is how to make money off of his children. So yeah, in the Lange Kloof, like kids can be kids and they can live their life sort of the way they want to. They help each other. You know, it's a very open, inviting space. It's a good space for someone to be in. But then also this place is droog, so it's dry. The Lange Kloof is a very dry place. And this could indicate difficult times. So this means obviously going through droughts, and then obviously not, like they actually mentioned at one point, some of the things don't grow because there was a drought and it's difficult and the times are difficult there. But although the Kumuti family has been through so much, they are still very like strongly religious and they keep on working hard. And this is very important to also contrast this to Elias. In the bush, you have so many. I mean, we'll get to that. I'm sort of like saying things before the thing comes up on the slideshow. But if you contrast like having almost no opportunities or like no opportunities or not as many opportunities or chances in the Lange Kloof because it's so dry, contrasting that to the bush where it's lush and there's a lot of things that grows. The Kumuti family works so hard that they eventually make a success of this. We finished this like play off with they sold some of the ostriches so they actually made some money. Where if you contrast that to the bush where Elias is just super lazy, he basically wasn't able to do anything because he got trampled by elephants because he was looking for shortcuts on how to make money. Okay, and then we have the bush, the bos, which is another space. So firstly, it's toe en donker, so it's closed and dark, and this indicates that it's sleg, that it's bad. So Elias mishandels sy familie. Elias abuses his family. The mense in die bos is baie arm. The people in the bush is very poor. They are very poor. And then there's geen liefde nie. There's no love. I don't even really think there's love between Bartha and Elias because he's emotionally manipulative, like, and abusive towards her. Benjamin will nie in die bos bly nie. So Benjamin / Lucas, he does not want to live in the bush. But then it's very vrugbaar. Like, it's very fertile, which means you have a lot of opportunities. Yet, Elias never used any of those opportunities. So daar is baie geleenthede in die bos, maar Elias is lyn so kort baie. Hy is die enigste persoon om te blameer vir die situasies waarin hy homself bevind. So it just says like although there are so many opportunities in the bush, you know, the ground is so fertile, Elias is lazy and he's looking for shortcuts. And this also means that he's the only person to blame for the situations that he gets into. He's the only one to blame for the fact that, you know, the situation at their house is still so bad where sometimes they don't even have sweet potatoes to eat. You know, he's the problem and he doesn't want to fix it. Like, he just stays exactly the same. He just thinks about getting rich instead of actually doing something actively. So if you just contrast these two main spaces, you would see that although the Lange Kloof is a more harsh environment to live in when it comes to, like, you know, the ground might not be fertile because it's so dry, it's still a much better space to be in than the bush. Then the other space we have is the sea, so the ocean. And there's also like the ocean is like Naisna. Like Naisna, when they also talk about Naisna, the door. Obviously, being by the ocean is being close to the ocean. You can see the ocean. But the rest of it, like going into the town Naisna, it is close to the ocean. So here you just have vryheid, so freedom. Lucas is hier uit vrye keuse. Lucas chooses to live by the ocean. It's like maybe one of the, you know, obviously like if we have to think about it like this, and obviously like I support the Kumuti family, Lucas had no choice, or Benjamin had no choice of what happened to him, you know, when he was taken in by the Kumuti family, although they did provide for him quite a lot. He didn't have a choice in going to the Van Rooyen family. He was forced to go there. And so the first time when he goes to the sea, the ocean, it's the first time he's actively choosing to be somewhere. It's the first time he's sort of being true to himself, really, and making his own choices. But then also with the space, it's oop en goed, open lig, so it's goed, so it's open and it's light, so it's good. Bied vir hom 'n nuwe wêreld aan. Hy kan homself hier vind, so it gives him new opportunities, it shows him a new world. It also exposes him more to something he's passionate about, which is being close to water and stuff like that. And it's also here where he can essentially find himself. So these are the three main spaces that we have in FIELA Se Kind, die drama. Okay, then karakterisering, so characterization. 'n Mens kry 'n idee oor die karakter deur hul dialoog en handeling aksie. So we just get an idea of a character through their dialogue and their actions. And now I want you to think of each and every one of the characters that we have and how you would feel. I'm not going to go into detail about them, but if you think about like let's contrast the two, sort of like the the main people of the families, which is FIELA of the Kamuti family, and then Elias of the Van Rooyen family. If you had to contrast these two people and you think of their dialogue and you think of their actions, it's easy to see which person is a better person. So it's important to look at this. Like Elias shows us from the beginning through his monologues and the way he treats his kids that he's a horrible person. FIELA, although she is sometimes quite like strict and she sometimes is quite harsh, the way she always speaks, the way she always thanks the Lord, the way she helps her family, it shows us that she is a good person. The way she walks over the hill through everywhere, like to go to the magistrate to say she wants to see Benjamin, it shows us that she is a good, proactive person. Dialoog wat gesê word, gevoelens en eienskappe word oorgedra. So the characterization is through the dialogue. What is said and feelings and characteristics of the character is shown to us. And then handeling, so the action. Alles wat karakter op die verhoog doen, bewegings, gebare, gesigsuitdrukkings. So this refers to everything the character does on stage. The movements, the gestures they have, the body language, the facial expressions. And then we have two types of actions. So the one is uiterlike handeling, so like handling that you can physically see. And it's wat die karakter fisies doen, it's what the character does physically on stage. And then innerlike handeling is how they feel, so it's on the inside. And this is what we can sometimes obviously see. The uiterlike handeling you will only be able to see through movement on the stage. And innerlike handeling you will probably be able to see through their facial expression. So moet gemotiveerd wees, so each action should be motivated. You can't just randomly walk around on a stage if it doesn't actually match the scene. And then optrede van elke karakter moet by hulle pas. It's important that how each character behaves really suits their character. Okay, so if the character is usually like a sad person, they can't suddenly start singing songs all the time. And then handeling en dialoog bepaal of die gehoor van die karakter gaan hou. So it just says like the action and the dialogue determines whether or not the audience will like a character. And I think in FIELA Se Kind it does show it quite clearly. If I want to say once again like we think of FIELA and Elias, it is very easy to dislike Elias because of what he does, and it's very easy to like FIELA because of what she does. Okay, and then structuur van drama. So this is just the structure of a drama. So we start with the expositie, which is the exposition. So begin van die drama, it's the starting of the drama. En leser kry inligting oor karakters, die plek en die tyd. The reader gets information about the characters, the time, and the place. Okay, then we build up, we start building up, and we call that the motoriese moment. Okay, and this is where the tension starts to build, slowly but surely. It's like the one thingy that starts the tension, essentially. Then we have the verwikkeling. Spanning neem toe, tekens van conflict. So it just means like the tension in the story is building, and there are signs of conflict starting here. Then we have the crisis of the Claymarks. And this is waarna toe die spanning opgebou het. So the tension builds up to this one specific like little point. And then it starts going down again with the ontknoping, which is spanning word opgelos. So like the tension is like resolved. And then we have the denouement, wat laaste gedeelte van die drama, alles word saamgebring. So it's sort of like the conclusion. It's the last part of the drama and everything is brought together. Everything, all the loose ties, like all the loose strings are tied up. So now if we look at like structuur van FIELA Se Kind die drama, so we're going to look at what little part of the book is which part of the structure of the drama. So the expositie, so the exposition, remember it tells us more about like what's happening, where it is. So voorstelling van die karakters, plek en tyd. We have the Van Rooyen family. We introduced to them in the first act, and we know that they're in the bush, and this is in 1865. So we do get introduced like immediately to these things. Then just in the second act, we get introduced to the Kamuti family, and we get introduced to another space, which is the Lange Kloof, and we get introduced to a time lapse. So the exposition in this book is really good in showing us like where we are in the book, which characters we are dealing with, and where the main spaces are. Then the motoriese moment where the spanning starts to build up. This is the besoek van die census manne, Lange en Dikke op die Kamuti se plaas. The moment those census guys comes to visit the Kamuti family, to count them, and they don't see Benjamin at this point, but when they just get there, we know that something bad is going to happen. Okay, because we know at one point FIELA says the whole time, dear Lord, please just keep Benjamin away, don't let him come here. I feel like we all know, like in our heads, we were like, he's probably going to pop up somewhere. So the tension does start building when they get to the community family, to the Lange Kloof. So for the verwikkeling, sort of like the development. So the census manne, this is also the point, like they saw Benjamin, and then the census manne, sorry, so they saw Benjamin, they went back to speak to the magistrates, and then they came back to the Lange Kloof. Die census manne sê dat die magistraat Benjamin en Nysna will sien. So this is the point where they say, like, the tension is really building here, and it's leading to the main conflicts and the main crisis. Is that the census guy said that the magistrate wants to see Benjamin and Nysna, and this is the point where FIELA also says, okay, Benjamin will go to Nysna. Because remember, FIELA believes that Benjamin will be returned to them. She believes the magistrate won't just take the child away from them. Okay? And then we have the crisis or the Claymarks. So Bartha herken Benjamin as haar seun Lucas. Benjamin moet saam met die van Rooyens in die bos gaan bly. So the crisis, the main climax in this story is that Bartha recognizes Benjamin as her child Lucas, and this means that Benjamin has to go, well, number one, become a van Rooyen, and I would say go and live with them in the bush. So ontknoping, so this is where the tension starts. Obviously, like we're building down from the climax, like the climax, the high point that we actually reach. We're starting to go down from there. So Lucas bly in die bos. So Lucas stays in the bush. Sukkel met sy identiteit. He struggles with his identity because he's like, am I community? Am I van Rooyen? FIELA probeer contact met Benjamin maak. FIELA tries to make contact with Benjamin. Also, Benjamin then goes to the ocean. All of this happens, or like goes to the sea, and he starts working there for Mr. Ben and Khalil September. So all of this happens in the ontknopening, so where the tension starts to like get less. Lucas ontwikkel gevoelens vir Nina, so he develops feelings for Nina. And then Bartha herken dat Lucas nie hul seun is nie. Bartha admits that Lucas is not actually their son. So that like crisis that we had is sort of like resolved in the ontknoping. So we go from like having a lot of tension because he's taken away, has to be van Rooyen, to in the ontknoping when the tension like gets a little bit less, is that we now know that he's not actually a van Rooyen. And then the denouement, so like the conclusion. Benjamin sê hy is 'n commutie verlos van Lucas van Rooyen. So Benjamin tells Mr. Ben that he is a commutie, and he's sort of like relieved of the name van Rooyen. He doesn't need to stress about that anymore. So ja. Gaan na Nina toe om haar te sê hulle is nie boetie en sissie nie en dat hy op haar verlief is. So now also here he can go to Nina, and he goes to Nina because he wants to tell her we are not brother and sister, and he probably also wants to tell her that he is in love with her. Gaan terug na die Lange Kloof keer. He also says here that eventually like he'll help out Mr. Ben for a while, but he will go back to the Lange Kloof to his people. So it is sort of like the problem is resolved here in the sense that he goes back to people. He sort of has found his identity, and he calls the Lange Kloof people his people. He sees himself as a community. He sees himself as a member of the community in the Lange Kloof. Okay, then the thema. So the themes are pretty important. Yeah. So the first one is identiteit, so identity. So Benjamin / Lucas weet nie wie hy is nie. So Benjamin / Lucas doesn't know who he is. Is hy 'n commutie of 'n van Rooyen of iets anders? So is he a commutie? Is he a van Rooyen? Or who is he actually? Because obviously after he finds out that he's not a van Rooyen, he still is like, but who am I? He's still not 100% sure. So I think obviously like he wants to be a commutie and he wants to think only of that. But a question we can ask is, so Benjamin deur hierdie identiteitskrisis gegaan het as hy net by die communities gebly het. So would he have gone through this identity crisis if he stayed with the communities? There's a big chance he might have gone through a small identity crisis when he gets older and he realizes that his skin color is different from everyone around him. But I don't think the identity crisis would be as bad as it was here. It's like giving someone a new name, a new surname, a new family, a new place to live in. That's obviously like a massive identity problem that will pop up. Then bevryding, so this is emancipation. So Benjamin / Lucas het gevoelens vir Nina, sy sussie wat identiteitskrisis nog meer beklemtoon. So this emancipation goes with the identity crisis. The reason the identity crisis or the emancipation starts to get really important is when Lucas develops feelings for his sister. And he's like, I need to know if I'm actually van Rooyen, because why do I have this feelings for my sister? Wanneer hy uitvind hy is nie van Rooyen nie, is hy bevry. En hy kan met tyd uitvind wie of wat hy werklik is, en hy kan van niemand weet hoe hy voel. So when he finds out that he's not a van der Weyden, you know, he is somewhat free, he is somewhat emancipated, and he can figure out who he is or what he is through time. But like, it is really good when he finds this out, because he can actually tell Nina how he feels. So like I said, like, these two sort of go together, is once he knows that he's not a van der Weyden, he solves some of his identity crisis problems. Then this one is a pretty important one, and this is essentially the one that sets the whole story like going, when we find out that it was the tall guy who abused his power to take Benjamin away. So mag en die misbruik van mag. So it's power, okay, and the abuse of power. So die lange misbruik sy mag, en dit veroorsaak sulke slegte tyd in Benjamin/Lucas se lewe. So the main abuse of power comes with the tall guy, the census guy who whispered in like Barta's ear, choose the one with the blue shirt, and this basically like caused such a bad time in Benjamin/Lucas's life. But he abused his power. He didn't want FIELA to be right. He didn't want a white child to be in a colored community, and this is why he abused his power. And he ruined not just like almost like Lucas/Benjamin's life, but also if you think about FIELA's life, and if you think about Selling's life, you know, their life was almost on hold because they were waiting the whole time, to wondering, you know, if they will ever see Benjamin again. And this obviously would have had an effect on every other child in their family. Die magistraat gebruik sy mag om Benjamin weg te vat, en sê dan vir FIELA sy mag nie probeer om hom te vind nie. Die magistraat se woord is wet. So this also, the magistrate uses his power that he has to take Benjamin away and to tell FIELA that she can't go and see Benjamin or try to find him. And at one point, FIELA even says, like, die magistraat se woord is wet. She says the magistrate's word is the law. So he has a lot of power, but this power and the abuse of power theme goes hand in hand with the theme of ras and class, which is race and class. And obviously we know, like, with racism or with classism, you know, like, it always is about like power and who has the power, like, you know, who has the power in this relationship. And we know that obviously back in the day it was that like the white people had the power in this relationship. So these sort of two, they do go hand in hand, and with the class as well. So it just says that Benjamin word weggevat omdat hy wit is. Benjamin is taken away because he's white. I always say to ask this question, would he have been taken away if he was any other race? No. It was because he was white and he was with a colored family. Die census manne glo dat 'n wit kind tussen wit mense moet groot word. So the census guys believe that a white child should be raised in a white community by white people. Although the Community family gave Benjamin a really good life. Die communities het beter vir Benjamin gesorg as die van der Weyden. So the communities could take care of Benjamin a lot better than the van der Weyden ever could. Yet they still thought it was better to put him with white people who were super poor, had an abusive dad, wasn't able to take care of another child. They still thought it was important to put this child in care of a white person, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the fact that the family of color did so much better than this poor white family. Die dorpsmense spot met die bosmense omdat hulle laer klas is. And this is like the one about class as well, is that, you know, the townspeople, which essentially would be English people, because remember Miss Witherberry, she's also English, they tease the bush people because the bush people are in a lower class. Essentially, the bush people are very poor. So this is sort of just where that whole thing comes together. And like I said, just remember these two, mag and die misbruik van mag and ras and class, they obviously sort of go hand in hand. They go together. So yeah, that's the end of this video. I know I was rambling a little bit, but I hope it does help. These are just a few small things. I think my pronunciation of some things was a little bit weird, but I hope this helps you. And yeah, tot ziens allemaal.